Today is October 21, 2018, and I'm sitting here looking at the airlock on my wine that I started yesterday. I took 2 cans of grape concentrate, mixed them with 6 cans of distilled water, put them together with 3 cups of sugar and a teaspoon of winemaking yeast, or 3/4 of a teaspoon of winemaking yeast. And this morning I woke up and I didn't see the bubbles coming out of my airlock like I'd seen in other videos. So I was concerned that my brew isn't brewing up like it should. Well, let me tell you something. It is. I can smell something coming out of the top of the airlock right here in the airlock. There's some holes here, and this airlock goes up the clear tube. Did you just see it bubble just now? Did you see it bubbling just now? There you go. There is fermentation going on inside of this container. Let me get a little close up here and let me show you. And the reason I know that is that this thing has completely been sealed overnight. I started this brew yesterday afternoon. I sealed it up with this airtight lid, and I put my airlock on there. Now, this is not necessary. I could have brewed this in a plastic container and I didn't have to have an airlock, but just for giggles I wanted an airlock. But I took the thing and I moved it a little bit just to get a closer look at it. And let me show you how I know that there's CO2 going on and there's a fermentation going on inside this container. I'm just going to give this little push. See the bubbles? That is the CO2 from the fermentation of the wine inside. So I know that I do not have to take the cover off this container. I don't have to pull the airlock out and add some yeast to it, because I know what's inside of here. Inside this container is brewing. And also I can also hear a tiny little bit of hiss through the cover, just a little bit. So this has been completely enclosed. I haven't undone this airlock. No air has gotten in there. All I'm doing is I'm just pushing this down, and you can see the bubbles, and then watch the airlock drop. Watch this, watch this. Watch the airlock drop inside the container back down to bottom. See the top of the airlock right here inside? Now watch as the wine brews and the CO2 comes up through this tube, goes up the center, goes around inside and pushes down on the water. This airlock start to rise. See it's rising? See it's rising? That's CO2 building up in the center section here. I'm just letting you know that don't open up your brew just because you think it's not brewing. Just come over to your little container, give a little bit of a push down on the lid like this. See the bubbles? That's the CO2. And see the airlock lid's coming back down on the inside there. See it come down? See the pointed tip right there? Now watch that thing just go up on its own. As the CO2 builds up inside of it, there you go. It's building up. It's building up. Now you know that your CO2 is, there's plenty of CO2 in there. You don't even have to open the lid. You know, or I know based on what I see, that this is brewing, and it's brewing fast, because look how quick that lid came back up inside there and is touching the outer cover. That's how you know, and you don't have to spoil your wine because you're overly concerned if it's brewing. Just take your wine cover, see the water edge starting to rise, see it rising. Well, that's CO2 coming up the tube, going through the little nozzle, coming down, creating pressure on the water from the inside. The water's rising, and eventually what'll happen is the pressure inside will get greater than the pressure outside, and you'll get the bubbles pushing up. But see, I'm just going to exert a little bit of pressure. Watch this, watch this, watch this. There you go. That's all you have to do. Don't spoil your wine just because you're afraid it's not brewing. If I didn't get this kind of reaction out of it, then I would know that I'd have to probably open the lid and add yeast. No, I wouldn't do that. I would take this little plastic cover off, and instead of opening the whole thing up here and exposing the wine, what I would do is I'd just take a soda straw and I'd stick it down in the tube on the center here, right here, and I would pour my yeast down that center straw. This way, if there was any CO2 fermentation that's inside this bucket, I wouldn't spoil my wine. I would just introduce the yeast through this little tube right here up the center. But it's completely unnecessary. Everything's working fine, and I'm out.